The one that I first came into my mind is the obvious one. Well, I've actually been lucky enough to be, well, it wasn't quite a dinner party, it was more a birthday party with Jurgen Klopp a couple of years ago. And it was everything I'd have hoped it to be. His story was very similar to my story, as in his comes from Jamaica. His family comes from Jamaica. My family came from Jamaica. He was left-footed. I was left-footed. I mean, his birthday's even the day before mine. I can't sing "You'll Never Walk Alone" at the beginning. I have to kind of mouth it under my breath.
Hello and welcome to This is Anfield. Today we're here with Mo Stewart, who you may have seen at Arne Slot's press conferences, or more likely heard actually, or seen him on the Anfield Wrap and other places like that. So today we're going to have a little bit of a chat about his Liverpool supporting life and how he got to where he is. So thanks for coming on, Mo.
I'm really glad to be here, Sam. Thanks for having me, honestly. And it's funny you say about people recognizing my voice rather than seeing my face. I've had quite a few people who've kind of messaged me saying, "Was that you that I heard?" So yeah, my voice is clearly quite distinctive.
So first off, we're going to get straight into it. We're going to talk a bit about your life supporting Liverpool, how it started, where we're at the moment. Then we'll just have a little bit of a chat about the Reds after, I think. So first off, can you remember your first Liverpool game?
Oh, the first game I attended for sure. It was Worthington Cup, as it was called back then, or a League Cup as it is now, against Southampton. Funnily enough, at Anfield, we won 3-0, and I was sitting in the Kop. Patrick Berger scored a free kick, and I was sitting right behind the goal, and it looked like the ball was going to end up directly in my lap, but thankfully it went in the goal. But by that point, I'd already been supporting Liverpool for the best part of 15 years. So it was very much a pilgrimage for me to come to that game. And yeah, there's loads of things about it I'll always remember. But yeah, it was a special day, even though it wasn't exactly a packed house. It was the season that we won the cup. So the season we beat Man United in the final. So 2002, 2003. It was that season.
And then you mentioned you'd already been a Red for a long time before that. How did you sort of become a Liverpool supporter?
So I feel like there's quite a few people who look like me, who are around the same age as me, who will have a similar story. But we are all John Barnes babies. I met him earlier in the summer, and I was very clear to point out that I meant that metaphorically. He's not actually my father. My actual father is still there doing a very good job as he's done for the last 43 years. But when I first started watching football, I was kind of watching it only on TV because where we lived in Kent, there wasn't really much opportunity to go out and see live football. So we were watching TV. Liverpool were the team who were doing very well, so they were on TV more often than others. And then when John Barnes joined, it kind of felt like this was it. This was the moment where I was like, okay, these are the guys I want to follow because yes, he played for Watford before, but it was when he joined Liverpool really that everything really clicked into place. He was such a fantastic man to watch, such a brilliant player. And his story was very similar to my story, as in his family comes from Jamaica, my family came from Jamaica. He was left-footed, I was left-footed. I mean, his birthday's even the day before mine. So it was very much like, okay, this is my guy, and he's the guy I'm gonna follow. It probably helped that Liverpool were very good back then. But I mean, I think it's fair to say that hasn't always been the case in the years intervening, and my love has just grown and grown.
I think that also covers my who was your idol question then.
Yeah, yeah, quite nicely. It's funny because he at the time was able to do magic for Liverpool, but whenever he played for England, it was a little bit more difficult. And I fiercely defended him amongst all my friends at school. So whenever there was an England game and he was getting abuse or whatever, and I get back into school the next day and they're like, "Oh, Barnes is rubbish. He's not as good." I'm like, "Don't you dare say he's rubbish!" And that kind of crystallized my love more. And then, obviously, as he got older and his role in the team changed, he became a central midfielder. He became the captain. Um, it kind of reflected my period of time as well because that was around the time when I was really playing football as like myself for a team regularly and just an understanding appreciation of the game and being in central midfield and working out. how to dictate the play of a game. That was something that I was trying to do myself. So my love for him grew, and then he left, and I was very, very sad.
But as you say, you continue supporting Liverpool and you've moved to the city now. But growing up in Kent, how did you kind of view Liverpool? And then, you've got involved in doing the Anfield rap, you've got involved in the city as a DJ and that kind of thing. Has loving the city been as important to you as supporting the football club, and have they become entwined?
They have 100% come entwined. They come hand in hand as far as I'm concerned. So before I moved here, my images of Liverpool were all about the football team. I mean, obviously, I was aware of the Beatles, but they really were kind of almost like a background. They almost felt like a band for everyone. They didn't really feel specifically Liverpool to me in my young mind. But seeing Anfield, seeing the crowds, seeing all of those things as a young kid, that really kind of made me think, okay, this is where I want to be. And obviously in the good and in the bad times. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Hillsborough and all of the fallout from that. And that was something, again, I vividly remember watching that game on TV, and then all of the fallout afterwards with the scarves all across the Anfield pitch and the roses. And those were things where I felt really emotionally connected to the team. And it was around that time that I kind of made a decision that I wanted to move here. So I didn't go to uni here. I decided to go to uni in Stoke for some reason. But one of my good friends, my best friend from home, he did come to university here. So I kind of visited him a couple of times. And every time I'd come to visit him, the vibe, the people, the atmosphere, the attitude, it all just felt so exactly what I wanted. I felt at home instantly. So that only increased my desire to move here. And then when I finally did move here, it just kind of everything felt perfect. So last week I celebrated 20 years of living in Liverpool, and it feels like, well, it's longer than I've lived anywhere else. And it feels like home more than anywhere else. I mean, it's not up to me to decide whether or not I am officially an adopted Scouser, but I feel like I am really.
I think that's safe to say that after 20 years. So how did you kind of get into doing the Anfield rap and into media and podcasting? Was that something you always wanted to do? Not that podcasts would have existed when you were young, but was that field something you always wanted to get into?
Yeah, so I was always trying to get into it. So when I was a kid, I wanted to be a commentator. Believe it or not, even before an actual footballer, I wanted to be a commentator because I felt like they had the best job and I could talk for England anyway. So it just seemed like an obvious choice for me to do it. So when I went to university, I went to do it was film, TV, and radio studies, but there was quite a heavy emphasis on doing stuff and actually working within the journalisms, and we did sports journalism for quite a long time during my degree. So I had already had that grounding of what it takes to be a journalist or a writer. But it was hard to get work. It really was hard to get work. So in the interim, DJing was kind of my other passion. Music's always been a passion of mine. So I was kind of doing that on the side. And funnily enough, it was music that led to me joining the Anfield Rap because I was DJing in a bar and they were recording upstairs in the same bar. So I kind of got to know them through just being in the same building a lot. And then they had this music show at the time called The Rider. And they asked me to come on and say, oh, okay, you know a little bit about music, come on, talk about music for a little bit. And John and Neil from the Anfield Rap were trying to become DJs. So they were aware that obviously I'm a DJ, and they're like, "Oh, so we should get you on to kind of talk about that and give us some DJing tips." The idea of that now is frankly hilarious, by the way. I've seen them in action, and yeah, they needed more than my help. Um, but I was doing that for a good few months, and then I'll never forget it. We were walking down the stairs after one of the shows, and one of them just turned to me and was like, so are you into football then? And I was like, yes, yes, I am. He's like, you should come on one of the football shows. And that was September 2016. And I've not looked back in the last 8 years since. And it's been fantastic because that has been the catalyst for me to do everything else I've been able to do within the space of sports journalism. So working with Premier League Productions, working with the BBC, doing stuff with Radio City Talk, and now, as you mentioned, being around in Arne Slot's press conferences. So sometimes it can be the strangest connections and the weirdest elements of luck that get you where you want to be after years and years of applying for jobs and getting nowhere. It just needs to be a DJ in the right place.
You still speak very much from a supporter perspective at times, but when you go into the press conference, you have to be professional, and your questions are quite tactical, which is quite refreshing because often we get the same kind of questions over and over again. And so, how has doing that and working in the media and having to actually think about more of the game rather than go to match, hope we win, go home, have a pint. How has that kind of affected your love of Liverpool? Has it changed the way you support the Reds or how you view football?
It hasn't changed how I view football because frankly, that's kind of how I've always viewed football. I have my dad to thank for that. When we were younger and we'd sit down and we wouldn't just watch because he's a Spurs fan. We wouldn't just watch Tottenham or we wouldn't just watch Liverpool or Leeds, which is my sister's team. On a Sunday afternoon, we sit down and we watch Italian football, we watch English football, we watch French football, we watch Spanish football, we watch Scottish football, and it was more about the love of the game and not just the love of the game, but the love of how it's played by certain teams. There was your AC Milan's, my dad likes his Real Madrid, even Celtic of the Henrik Larsson era. The teams who like to play great, fantastic flowing football, they were the ones who we kind of stuck to. But that analytical side was always in there when we were watching other teams because when you're detached from the emotion of wanting your team to win, you can kind of be a little bit more analytical with it. So I've always had that ability. It has become difficult at times, I have to admit. So a lot of the time when I'm working the game as a part of the media crew, at the moment I've been work because I work for American radio, so I've been sitting up in the radio gantry up on level 6, and you're sitting alongside, professionals who have been doing it for a long time, people who for like BBC or for Talk Sport who have no affiliation to Liverpool. And I can't sing You'll Never Walk Alone at the beginning. I have to kind of mouth it under my breath. I can't cheer when Liverpool score. I have to kind of sit there. And it's difficult. And there are times when you kind of find yourself fighting yourself to be able to say, no, I want to be, like you say, professional. I want people to respect me for my work. But at the same time, you do want to be able to enjoy the thing that got you in there in the first place. This is the reason why you wanted to do all those things because you enjoy the game and you enjoy watching your team do well. And frankly, this season, there's been a lot of watching our team do well. So it's I have to make sure that I enjoy it at other times, whether that means going home and rewatching the game, or as you say, once the work side's finished, going into the pub and having a chat with mates, or even on shows like the Anfield Rap, getting the chance to discuss it and kind of feel it through. So it's strange, but I think it's something I can quite easily get used to. And like I say, as long as the Reds keep winning, I'm not really that bothered.
Yeah, and I think it's something that you kind of have to get used to in the job because I know people have said after we won the European Cup in 2019, they were working hard, and then about 2 o'clock in the morning they finished and just went like celebrated like that was their
Exactly.
release a few hours after the end of the match. But going back to being a supporter, if you could relive one Liverpool game from the past, you don't have to have been there, you don't even have to have watched it. Could have been before you were born, it could have been the other week.
Yeah.
Have you got one?
Ooh. So this is difficult because naturally I've got more than one. Um, the one that I first came into my mind is the obvious one, which is Istanbul, because it was just such a seismic moment for so many reasons. That was my first summer living in Liverpool. So being in and around the city at that time and getting to feel what it feels like to be in a European Cup final because it's not just about the team, it really becomes about the city. Because at that point, it had been 20 years since we'd been in the European Cup final. So everything really felt alive. Wherever you went around, you see posters, you see cardboard cutouts of Stevie and Karen in people's windows, like it was like there was Santa Claus or something. and just the vibe around the place was so special. And then obviously the game itself happens and the celebrations afterwards. I've got vivid memories of walking home because I lived in the Wavertree area at that point, walking home from the city centre, pretty much down Upper Parliament Street and then
Mhm.
down Smithdown Road, just walking through the middle of the road. Like people like it was like when you come out of Anfield and everyone just fills the road and cars just have to deal with it wherever they can. It was like that. It was just such a special memory that I have. So that's one. The ones of the games I've been to, the one that I actually enjoyed the most, it's strange to say it because of what happened later, is Liverpool beating Arsenal 5-1 in the Brendan Rodgers era, 13-14, because that was a game that I was not turning up to expecting Liverpool to win 5-1. I was just hoping Liverpool didn't get battered because Arsenal were top of the league at that point and we'd been good, but we'd also been it was a difficult season to kind of call how we were going to turn up because even some of the games we won, we didn't look like we were going to win until the end. But to come there and to be 4-0 up after 20 minutes and the general disbelief and joy mixed in together of everyone, everyone was just kind of looking around at each other like, is this actually happening? Is this real? Am I gonna like wake up any moment? And it was just such an enjoyable game. And even then when they scored in the second half, like no one cared. We had like 45 minutes at least of just joy. Like we know we're winning this game. We know that we're a better team than the team who's currently top of the league. And then obviously what happened after that, that was the start of that remarkable run that nearly took us to the promised land. So the memories I have of that day are also really special.
Well, my next question was actually if you could relive one season, which would it be? And often people have that, maybe not as the number one, but up there because it felt like such a sort of a wave of emotion.
Yeah.
I was quite young still, but I can remember just being ecstatic. Even every day going into school, you would kind of you'd have a smile on your face because you were waiting for the next game. You were just waiting
Yeah.
to be thrilled again at the weekend. And I've set you up for the answer there, but it might not be your answer, 13-14.
Well,
It
it's
might be
funny
up
because
there, but I was wondering which yours would be.
it is up there. I do think that the last three games kind of kill it though. Even so, there's the TV show, the Premier League Years on Sky Sports.
Mhm.
Whenever it's that season, I always watch it, but I always turn it off 10 minutes before the end because I just can't. I just can't. There's too many bad memories tied up in it. So my actual answer is the treble season, 2000, 2001, because everything that we wanted to achieve, we did achieve. And the idea of being able to compete in three different competitions, four different competitions, if you include the league, and to get there. So that was also my first year at university. So I was living in student halls. And over the course of the season, lots of my other friends who weren't into football, some of my other friends who were supporters of other teams, kind of got swept up along in the emotion of it all. Of like, can they win it all? And yeah, it was just, I would say 6 months where every time we won a game, it made me feel like we were going to win the next one. And then we were going to win the next one. And then we were going to win the next one. And we had such a deep squad at that time. If you think about the players we had like Heskey, Fowler, Owen. Yeah, we had McAllister, Danny Murphy, Steven Gerrard, Patrick Berger. So many great players, all in all different positions. And it was every now and then we'd need one or the other to come up with something special. But just the ride in the wave of wow, you never know what's going to happen here. That season was just very, very special to me.
It's funny you say a treble season because I think maybe my answer from a personal point of view would be the 2021-22 season because that was the same. We kind of felt like after Christmas, Diaz had come in, Mane was back through the middle and up front and back in form, and it felt like we were just winning every single game. And personally, that no credits didn't count that year for the tickets, so I could go to pretty much every home game for whatever reason that was. That's a topic for another day. But that and I've it's funny you say about Smithdown as well. I used to walk from Smithdown all the way to Anfield over an hour and a half,
Yeah,
stand
yeah.
there, watch the match, walk all the way back, but you wouldn't be tired
No.
because you were just on a high after winning every week. So I suppose that takes us on to Jurgen Klopp.
Mm.
How do you think he, you've been very much involved in the heart of the city, DJing, whether that be in different bars, with doing stuff to do with Liverpool. How do you think he kind of changed, not changed, but brought out the best of Liverpool supporter culture?
I mean, I feel like he did change it because he, so Brendan Rodgers gave a lot, he knew what Liverpool supporters wanted to hear, and he paid a lot of lip service to that, particularly around the ideas of culture. But you could tell that it wasn't natural to him. You could tell that he was doing it because he felt like that's what needed to be done. With Jurgen, he was doing it because he felt it, he believed it, and you could tell because he'd done exactly the same thing at Mainz. He'd done exactly the same thing at Dortmund. It was just how he was and who he is. And I think people recognized that early on. It helped that we were at a low ebb. We needed someone to come in and quote unquote save us a bit because it was all a bit rudderless towards the end of Brendan Rodgers. And if it got that management appointment wrong, we could have been in the wilderness and really away from the winning for a long, long time. So him coming in and being so confident, but also so assured and so willing to kind of be open about what it was that he wanted and what he felt like he could get from us. And that was it. It wasn't so much the fact that he paid lip service to the crowd. He knew that he needed us and that he was willing to kind of develop that relationship from the very get go. People always remember the Southampton game where we needed to win and everyone left, and he said I felt very alone. And if you think about it, there are a lot of Liverpool managers who, if he'd have said that, they'd have criticised him. He'd been like, "Well, who's he to say this about us already?" But everyone was a bit like, wow, no, he's right. And then there's the famous West Brom game where it turned around. And from that moment on, it was like, okay, well, we're all in this together. And that togetherness was what he preached in the dressing room. It's what he preached in the stands. And it took us to the very top of the football mountain. So I think for people of my generation who heard a lot about Bill Shankly but never got to see him in action, I think Jurgen Klopp was just such a special man because he was everything. He embodied everything that Shankly had, but he was still his own man. He still had his own spin on it. And yeah, those years with the ups and downs, with the final defeats and all of those other things in it, I think that everyone who lived through them will remember them fondly.
Yeah, and I think that's something from going from the Klopp to the Slot era. We don't know what's going to happen in the Slot era. It looks like it's going to be quite good, but I think someone on the Anfield Wrap actually said, no matter how well we do under Slot, I think we all hope this is wrong. No matter how well we do under Slot, even if we didn't win everything multiple times with Klopp, there will never be more fun. Like we'll never have more fun than the way we did it
Yeah.
under Klopp because of the ups and the downs and the singing and the boss nights and everything that kind of came with it. And Klopp's someone that might bring up now in my next question. If you could have three guests for a dinner party from Liverpool's past, present, it could be a player, manager, director,
Mm.
anyone, supporter, who would you have? You've got three.
Oof. Well, I've actually been lucky enough to be, well, it wasn't quite a dinner party, it was more a birthday party with Jurgen Klopp a couple of years ago. And it was everything I'd have hoped it to be. So yeah, he's definitely in. He's definitely in 100%. Um, I have to be obvious and say John Barnes as well, because for all those obvious other obvious reasons, we could talk about so much. And for a wild card, I want to say Daniel Sturridge because he's just so much fun. He genuinely is just like the kind of person you could have an absolute awesome time with, no matter what you're talking about. And yeah, he's also someone who he's actually a very astute football brain. I'd love to speak to him about football and all that kind of stuff. But then we could talk about music, We talk about fashion. We talk about food. Like just the mix of those three and me. I'm sure we'd have a bust time.
Yeah, Daniel Sturridge is someone who, as much on Sky Sports, as much as he jokes and he maybe gets on Roy Keane's nerves a little bit when he's talking about forward play, you should actually listen through all the kind of the laughs because almost a bit like Michael Owen and that when a striker's talking about scoring goals, they normally know what they're talking about if it's Daniel Sturridge. So he's actually a very good pundit.
Yeah, no, he is. And I think that sometimes people can look at him and only see the other things and not really pay attention to what he's saying. But I think for us, we know how good he is. We know how good he's been. And you can see those instincts at play during his football career. So, like, I think the stuff that he says about Darwin Núñez has been really, really insightful. Like, if I had any influence at the club, I'd ask him to come in and just speak to him. I mean, I don't know how much of Brummy that Darwin Nunes will probably understand. He might need a translator, but just get them out together on the training pitch, just talking through stuff. Like his instincts, his striking instincts are so sharp. I think he can only do him some good.
And just moving on to Slot finally, we're going to try and keep this not a bit untime sensitive, but I think even if this goes out after a while, I don't think we'll have dropped off the cliff. So, how impressed have you been? How has it been to be in his press conferences, working with him, and the future looks bright?
The future does look bright, and I have been very impressed from the offs. I was lucky even before getting into the press conferences. I was lucky enough to be on the summer US tour. I was doing some DJ work for the club, but I was also in and around. We got to see some of the open training sessions there, and you got to see how he is working on the training pitch and the messages that he is so clear and sharp with his messaging. And that's something that we've seen over the course of the time he's been here. He's not only he's been unafraid to tell people exactly how he sees football. And obviously, in terms of the questions I've been asking him, I've kind of really jumped upon that because he's allowed me to jump upon that. He's given the answers that have helped me keep asking those kind of questions. But I think when you see the way that he was unafraid to go in there and say, "Look, I know that the man before me was a big presence here, but I don't feel the need to start changing things for change's sake, just so I can put my spin on it. The things that are working really well, let's keep doing those. I'm just going to make a few tweaks here and there." And it's those tweaks and adaptations that I've been the most impressed with. The way that we've been able to maybe have a sluggish first half and he'll get them in and he'll be able to work out exactly what the game needs in the second half and we'll go out there and win it. And these are the things that give me confidence that they can sustain this over a season. Obviously, you need luck with everything. You need luck with injuries. You need luck with refereeing decisions. You need luck with all different kinds of things to be able to get to the end of a season and win things. But everything else aside from luck that you need, as in a good squad, a manager who can transmit his ideas to them, and a guy who knows how to work under pressure, we've got that. So, as much as everyone in the summer was saying, we need to sign players, we need to do this, we need to do that, there was one signing that they made in the summer, and that was him. And that was more important than anything else that they could have done.
I think that's a good note to leave it on there. Thank you very much, Mo, for coming on. I know you've got a YouTube channel now. Have you got anything you'd like to plug?
Yes, by all means. So I do have a YouTube channel. Search my name, Mo Stewart. I think it's 3437 at the end of it as well, if you need that extra help. But generally, if you put Mo Stewart in, you'll see my face and you know what my face looks like. I've also got a Substack where I've been giving some of my thoughts about games, match reports from my times at the game as well. So if you search mostewart.substack.com, but there's the O in the Mo is a zero, if that makes sense. You'll find all of my writing on there. But come along, come and join me. There's plenty more LFC related content that I'm going to be bringing out from all of those platforms.
And now, when you're all watching on this, the press conferences on This Is Anfield, you'll be able to put a face to the voice.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that it's a real shame that they don't have a camera on me because a lot of the time I work really hard on getting dressed. So at least you'll be able to hear me even if you can't see me.
Absolutely, we can imagine. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again on This Is Anfield soon.